Hello everybody. Oh man, I had an awful lot of trouble getting kind of excited to go out today. In Parksville on the island here, it was actually pouring rain this morning and I wasn't terribly excited to get out the door. But I really wanted to push myself after last week's video, you know, try and get out of this little rut that I'm having. So I've driven South Island a little bit, past a town called Nanaimo to a little town called Ladysmith, and I've come out to a little regional park called Stocking Creek. And I have been here once before, but I never took any photographs. I just came here to check it out. There's a little waterfall here, and there might be a little bit of fall color, but it looks like it's kind of finished around here. As you can see, the leaves are pretty much brown. But the good news is that it's quite foggy here, and there's a little bit of light coming through. So the light actually right now is really quite nice. So I'm going to go and check out this waterfall. I know in the summer and in the dry, when we're having dry spells, it pretty much, well, it dries right up. But we have had quite a bit of rain lately, so I'm hoping there'll be enough rain or enough water coming over the waterfall to make it somewhat interesting. So it's in kind of a little bit of a gorge. Right, I'll go and check it out, and hopefully it won't be just a recce, and I'll actually take some photographs and try and get out of this bit of a slump that I'm having. All right, onward. It's looking quite good. There's quite a bit of water coming down the creek, so hopefully the waterfall will be in prime photographic condition. The light's just beautiful right now. Great, looking pretty good. There's quite a bit of water coming over it. There's actually quite a bit of atmospheric fog in the area too, so that's really nice. I did notice that the sun is starting to poke through, so I'm going to have to kind of rush on this, try and get a couple of decent shots before it gets too harsh. Now, before I came out here, I did check a number of images of the area and the waterfall, and I noticed that there's these kind of logs kind of in the way. I'm going to see if I can utilize them somehow in the composition, perhaps. It's quite deep down there, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to wade in or not, but yeah, this is looking pretty nice. Okay, I think I found a pretty good composition. The problem I'm having is that because I'm so close to the waterfall, I'm more or less kind of underneath it, and I'd like to get these logs in the foreground, but because I'm underneath it, I'm looking up more at the waterfall than straight across, and when I do that, I get quite a bit of the sky in, which I'm not really that keen on, because right now it's just a big white mass of pretty much nothing. There's no texture or anything in there. Good technique for you to find the brightest spots in any scene is to squint like this, and that really adds contrast. So if you're not sure which part of the composition is the brightest, if you just squint or close one eye and squint, the bright areas will really pop out, and that kind of gives you a good idea of where your attention is going to go when you have the final image. Now, if you do that and you find that the bright areas aren't where you want them to be, then that's a good time to, you know, re-establish a different composition. Now, if you have found a really good composition and the bright areas tend to be on the outside, then my only suggestion would be to when you process those images is to really darken them down, which I do quite a bit with a lot of my images. I use a lot of dodging and burning. So I think I found a pretty good composition, and I'll show you what my thought process is for this scene here. All right. Okay, so this is the composition that I've come up with, and you can see that the top of the falls is the brightest area, which isn't ideal, but this is about the best I could do. If I go in too close to the waterfall, then I would have cropped it too much. Now, there's a couple of things that are important to me. First of all, I kind of wanted this foreground log to somewhat frame the right side of the falls and keep your eye kind of in the center of it. Now, I'm not sure if it works better with this snag here on the outside of the frame, so it's not interjecting with the waterfall, or to have it kind of crossing over into the waterfall. So I'll probably take a couple of images with and without. So I'll probably move over to the left a little bit more. The other thing that was really important to me, I didn't want this foreground log to cross over the background log here. So I've composed it in such a way so that this snag in the background here kind of fits nicely into that slot. And to do that, I had to get quite low with my camera. So a lot of these things are important to me. It creates a pathway. It's somewhat like the video I did on whether an inch really makes a difference or not. And in this case, it's kind of the same thing. I don't want to block the viewer's eye from going through the frame. And one way to do that is make sure you don't have any kind of objects interjecting with one another or crossing over to create kind of a block for people's eye to move through the frame. That's the thinking behind it anyway. Now, you'll notice that there's quite a bit of glare on the logs and also the water. So I'll probably put a polarizer on and try it out and see if that cuts down on some of that glare there.
Okay, now rather than just have my images to music, I thought it might be kind of fun to give a self-critique and go over some of the things that I did to process some of these images, and also perhaps some of the things that I don't like about them. Now, you may have noticed straight off the bat that this image is a slightly different composition than the one I was just showing you, and that was because I was having a lot of trouble with flare in the sky here, so I had to include a little bit less than I would have liked to. And what ended up happening was that because I was including such little sky, or the bright area in the top there, it felt quite unbalanced. And what I mean by that is that the top area felt like it was much narrower than the bottom section. So what I ended up doing was cropping the image. I cropped quite a bit off the bottom to more of a panoramic kind of format, and I think it works much better. The top now feels quite a bit more balanced with the bottom here. Another thing that I did was, and I kind of neglected to notice this, it was quite windy by the edge of the falls here, and of course all the foliage, the cedar here and the ferns are all moving. Now, of course, because I had quite a slow shutter speed, all of that foliage was quite blurry. Now, what I usually do is take a number of images, one for the water at the shutter speed that I want, and then if there's any blurry foliage, then I'll take some separate images at a faster shutter speed for the foliage, and then just kind of paint those in after. But in this scenario, I actually forgot to do that. Now, luckily, I did take some images of the waterfall at a very high ISO. I wanted to try and get some texture in there and a faster shutter speed. So you'll notice there's a little bit of texture in here, and I painted that in afterwards. So there's two identical images, one at a high ISO, I think it was ISO 6400, and then one at a much lower ISO 64. And what I ended up doing was painting some of that ISO 6400 image on top of the ISO 64 one, and you'll notice that there's this looks like mist, but that's actually noise from the ISO 6400 image. Now usually I try and get rid of the noise, but in this case I left it in because I think it kind of simulated that mist that was happening around the area, and it also, not totally, but it sharpened up the foliage here, so it works quite well. As I said, in an ideal situation I probably would have preferred a little bit more sky to play with, but you know, I made do with what I had. I really like the composition with the logs here. That works out quite well. Okay, now out of the 3 photographs that I'm going to show you today, this is probably my favorite, and I think it's my favorite because the light was just so sublime with those beams of light in the background there. Now you may have noticed that with all these images I've warmed them up considerably. It's just artistic license. I just felt they looked better warmed up rather than that kind of cool blue tone. Now this photograph was a little tricky to take because I had the sun blaring right down the front of my lens, and of course lens flare was a real problem, especially with all that mist in the air. I kept having to wipe my lens clean, so those 2 combinations weren't helping matters. So the main reason why I turned this into a panoramic image was that I just couldn't include that much sky. I was just getting too much lens flare. So I ended up using my hand to block out a lot of the sun, and of course whatever was left was where I cropped. So this particular image is a combination of 3 images, and the reason why I did it that way is because the sun kept going behind clouds, and whenever it went behind a cloud then it really reduced that lens flare, and of course when the sun came out it was virtually impossible to get rid of all the lens flare. So I took the 3 images and then kind of painted them all together to form this image. Like I said, I really like the crop. I like the pano. I put the waterfall right in the center of the frame because it just felt balanced to me. Well, I'm really glad that I came out today. That turned out to be a really good morning. I'm not sure if I got anything really great, but you know, I say that every time. So, of course, you guys have seen the shots already, and I haven't seen them. So, I think I'm pretty happy with what I got. I was just a little bit worried about the light shining into my lens and all that mist. Sometimes you just can't see it on the back of the screen, and then of course when you open it up in a computer, then you discover all the flaws and everything. But anyway, that was an awesome time, and I mean, whether it got me out of this slump or not, I don't know, but I really enjoyed myself, so that's the main thing.
That's one thing Vancouver Island really does have going for it, is that there's no shortage of places to go, and they're all reasonable drives except for maybe North Island. Anyway, I'm going to go home and have a cup of tea. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please be sure to give me a thumbs up if you did, and as always, if you enjoy the content of my channel, be sure to subscribe. All right, everybody, thanks ever so much, and I'll catch you next time. All right, bye-bye.